Hello, my gorgeous pals. How are you? I hope you're well. It is the end of summer, almost fall time. I'm really excited for it, actually. I'm not excited for winter because I always manage to have flare ups in the winter, and it's my cancer anniversary in February. So I get a little weird around that time. I wonder why. It's like I have some trauma or something. I don't know. But I'm so happy that you're here. I can't wait for you to hear this episode. I found Kemi from the Black Disabled Creatives page, and her art was so beautiful that I really wanted to talk more with her. And I found that she started doing painting after her accident, where she became paralyzed, and since has been creating oil paintings. I really loved her attitude and her art and what it was saying. And I wanted to just learn more about what it was that she was doing and how she was living her life. So I hope that you have the same curiosity, because here is Kemi talking about living with paralysis. Let's be real. People love to gloss over chronic conditions or disabilities with a fleeting comment like, just be positive, or a fleeting insult like, kale will cure you. This is a podcast for when you face a different reality, knowing that positivity isn't a magic wand that's going to cure everything, but a flashlight in the dark that we may or may not have batteries to. Living with a chronic illness or disability makes you feel different, and your difference could be noticeable to others or not, but either can sometimes make you feel invisible. I'm here to tell you that your experience is valid and shared by others in the dark. Positivity is not the missing puzzle piece that's going to solve your life's puzzle, but it can be a beautiful tool that can help you grow, and sharing those experiences can make us grow together. So what do you do for work?
So for work, I'm a therapist. So right now I am working on getting all my internship hours in, my associate hours, before I get my permanent license. And so I do that in tandem with selling my artwork as well. But I've been focusing more on the therapy just so I can get all my hours in.
Nice. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
And when you started art, how old do you think you were when you started just painting and being creative like that?
So for me, art has pretty much been a part of my life before my car accident, and but it became a paramount and integral part of my life after my accident. I've always been drawing or doodling, that kind of thing. But I really didn't take myself seriously until after my car accident, when I really felt that I had a lot to express, a lot to sort out, and art was a big part of that for me. So I really, would say that art was the biggest part of my life from 2006. That's when I really started diving into saying, okay, there's something there for me here.
Wow. And before your accident, was it also a sort of sense of release for you, or was that only after?
Well, yeah, before, because I minored in studio art at Baylor University. So I always kept it as like a side um, passion of mine. I wanted to go into med school and become a doctor, but art was always something that kind of helped me balance the chaos of being in science classes, and it helped me kind of have an outlet for
Mm.
that kind of stress. But I really didn't take myself seriously until after my accident. That was always just going to be something that I was interested in, but nothing that I really thought would be a major part of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And that science and art brain together is like amazing. I'm really impressed by that always.
Yeah, some would think that they are like oil and water, but there's so much to creativity that isn't just about painting or visual things. I mean, you can be creative with the way that you handle math. You can be creative with the way that you handle anatomy and things like that. So, um, yeah, even right after my car accident, when I went back to finish my degree, I thought that I could put them together and be a medical illustrator. but it it didn't. It was such a small niche of creativity that I decided against it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and just finding what worked best for you and what you are passionate about still, you know? Oh, that's great.
exactly. Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about 2006. So you're in a car accident and that changed your life from that point on, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so I was at the senior year of my whole academic, career, my undergrad, and I was positioned to start applications for med school. And when I had the car accident, it really, derailed a lot of things because the level of my injury was at the cervical level, which means paralysis in my hands, in my arms, definitely paralysis in my legs. It was an incomplete injury, but it still affected me completely. So now I use a wheelchair for mobility, and it just really turned my life completely upside down. But I'm so thankful that I had family and friends and my faith to really kind of keep me grounded and help me.
Yeah, absolutely. How long after your accident were you in rehab for?
So my accident was in July of 2006. I was in inpatient for a couple of months. I ended up
Mm.
being able to go to the Institute for Rehabilitation and Research in Houston. So that was very exciting. And I did outpatient with them for 6 or 7 months. And then I went back to school in Waco for a year. And then I graduated and I got a job with Breakthrough, which is like it's like an after school program, but it's like extending the learning day for kids. So I was teaching for a while, and then I heard about a program called Project Walk, and I ended up going out to California for about a week to see what the program was all about, and found out that they opened up a facility in Texas, and so I was able to move to Austin and do that rehab with them. And rehab isn't a huge part of my life right now, but I keep it going at least once a week just to make sure that I'm not giving up on getting any function back, but
Mm.
I'm myself healthy and actually trying to stay in shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that too, that's a good point to bring up that like you're at this point where you feel like you're comfortable and now you're just like pushing yourself to still stay on top of it
Yeah.
and just like not as much as you used to because you know
Mhm.
like what your limits are, all this stuff. Because I hear people that just completely stop because it's hard. It's hard to go through these physical therapy sessions
Definitely, yes.
and they're just like, I'm done. You know, I've gotten to this point. I'm good. But I love to hear that you're still going there just to keep your body in shape. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand when you start rehab, especially after such a devastating life event, that you need to have hope, definitely, that you'll get as much function as possible back, but don't ride your life entirely on rehab for the first couple of years. Um, and that's what I did. My life was, I have to walk again. I have to get better again because my identity was tied so much to being a doctor and, following my whole life plan that I had in front of me. But as I got older and as I got more comfortable, like you said, in with the wheelchair and more comfortable with my identity, as a person with a disability, I became more focused on what am I getting back? What strengths can I have uh, come back that help me with my independence? Not so much I have to walk again, but I have to be able to open this door by myself. I have to be able to manage my life in a way where everything isn't riding on somehow reversing what happened, but
Mm.
making the best of what I have.
Yeah, because what is the likelihood of people actually reversing completely what they've gone through?
I mean, it's very small, and it's good to hold on to hope that you can reverse it. But when you hold on to that hope so strongly that it's inflexible, that it becomes the only thing that will make you happy, then that's a dysfunction, and that's a detriment to your second chance at life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's an acceptance that, you know, you take on that it's not a negative thing. Like, I love that you embrace it and just are accepting in that way, but are still going to these weekly therapy sessions to, like, show, like, I am working towards my goals, and that's specific to me. That's
Yeah,
great.
and I think one of the biggest experiences of my life that helped me affirm that mindset was being in the Miss Wheelchair America pageant and winning the crown of Miss Wheelchair Texas. I had never been around so many empowering women, so many empowering individuals that just owned their situations and moved forward. And they weren't so much about, like we said, reversing what happened to them, but being able to show the world that they can have vibrant lives in spite of this disability, and
Yeah.
really inspired me to be like, okay, I need to focus on what strengths and what gifts I have now. What can I build on instead of trying to look at what I quote unquote lack. And
Mhm.
um, it was just great being around them and still being friends with some women that are doing so much to change the mindset of what it is to have a disability.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me, did you sign up for that? Did someone put you up for it? Like, how did you go about going into that?
Actually, I had never heard of the program, and so I went to Baylor, and there was another alumni that uh, she was a part of the Miss Wheelchair Texas pageant, and she knew the coordinator very closely. They're very good friends. And she saw a write up that Baylor did about me after I graduated and thought I'd be perfect for it. So she emailed me, reached out to me, and I was like, no, I don't think, you know, I didn't feel like
Mm.
I had done anything to warrant that kind of stage. But I did it anyway. She convinced me. She said, we're going to do all this stuff and it'll be great. And so I did the pageant, and I remember just really fumbling so much at my speech. I ended up, even my platform was very vague. It was kind of the stereotypical pageant girl. I just want everyone in the world to be happy and world peace and all that kind of things. And I look back and I see just how naive I was about the impact that I could have. So I didn't win. I'm glad that I did not win on that platform, but I was convinced to run again, and uh, I was more grounded in who I was. I was more confident, and my platform was much more much more tangible. I focused on employing people with disabilities, and so I went to different events around Texas, especially dealing with vocational rehab, talking at their conferences and talking with those individuals that are pinnacle towards employing people with disabilities and giving them gainful employment. So that was really interesting, and I'm glad that I ran again, and I won in 2010, and was able to go to the national level, meet even more empowered women that are just so inspiring in their own rights.
Wow, that is so fun. I
It was
love
a lot of
that.
fun.
So how was that afterwards? So you got to win a chance to go around and talk at places in Texas
Yeah.
and share issues. Was it mainly on the employment for disabled people, or was there anything else that you brought up?
Well, that was my platform, so I wanted to be sure that I was speaking on that a lot. But other places that I've been, I went to the opening of Morgan's Wonderland in San Antonio. It's the first really fully accessible amusement park in America.
Oh.
So I was able to go and make an appearance there, so that was fun. I've been to different high schools. I was invited back to Baylor to speak at chapel to just talk about my story and just it's good that I was able to talk to people who are able-bodied about making sure that their life plans or their life goals are flexible and that they're allowing themselves to dream even beyond what they think they want for their lives. So it was good to be able to talk about different things,
Mm.
not just about uh, the issue of employing people with disabilities.
Yeah, that's true. And just bringing it to a level of, everyone goes through troubling times that
Exactly.
can completely alter your life in some way or another. And being able to manage that and not feel like it's something that you did wrong or and just the pivot. A lot of people just see it as a rut and they don't like see it as a pivot instead.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because when I do telehealth right now with counseling because of COVID, but before COVID happened, I was doing in-person sessions, and I remember a client of mine came in for his intake, and he saw me in the chair, and I'm not in a manual chair. I use a power chair. So that can be even more intimidating sometimes to people who are not used to wheelchairs in general. And he looked at me, he was like, "Oh, I don't know if you can be my therapist because you're in a wheelchair. You have bigger problems than me." And, I laughed at that, and I said, I think even more so I'm suited to be your therapist because how much more do you expect someone to think about your problems above their own. Like my problems, what you assume are my problems are right here in the open. And I enjoy being able to adjust people's mindsets about what it means to have a disability, to know a person with a disability, and to experience that. So it was a great opportunity for him to understand that I have strengths beyond not being able to walk. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm noticing this just even by this conversation about how many things you do. You're very active and like what I assume because of your Instagram page with so much beautiful art, I was like, this is it 100% of the time. Like you can't like be this good and then
oh,
like do anything else. But look at you're like therapist, you're doing all this stuff. I can't believe that.
feel like it's the Nigerian in me as well. We're always doing multiple things. If we're a doctor, we're also a photographer at the same time. If we, like I said, I'm an artist, but I'm also a therapist at the same time. And I feel uh, grounded in both areas. I feel the same kind of passion, I feel the same kind of good vibes and energy when I'm doing both things. It's just a shame I can't do them both at once. And some people have suggested art therapy to me, but that's not the same as creating your own art.
True. Yeah,
So I incorporate some of that, expressionistic interventions in my sessions with some of my clients, but it's not quite the same as creating my own artwork. So I'm
true.
looking forward to focusing more time on that once I have my hours in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So did you start off always doing painting or did you
Oh,
transition
I was terrified of painting. I
really?
didn't. Yes. So when I started with my studio art minor, I mostly wanted to do graphite, charcoal, ink. I loved metal sculpture. That was a really challenging course. But painting was something that I thought was too expensive, was not forgiving, and was just beyond. I mean, I think at one point I thought it was just it would require too much skill for me. I really just didn't think I wanted to go that arena at all. But after my accident, I had a couple more art classes that I need to complete, and one of them was oil painting. I was not for it. I did not want to deal with it at all. But I had a wonderful instructor, uh, Charles Umlauf, and he's Carl Umlauf's son. He's a famous sculptor, and he was so patient with me. And so my fingers are paralyzed, so I can't grasp a paintbrush. But he helped me engineer a way to work with a rubber band and stick the paintbrush to my fingers. And he showed me that painting is unlike drawing with pencil and paper. You can only erase so much before the paper starts to tear. But with paint, you wait a little bit and you can cover it with gesso and go back again and start a whole new piece. And oil paint is expensive, but I realized that it was a much more flexible medium for me to use with my disability compared to pencil and charcoal. Um, from time to time, I still break out the charcoal, but it's more messy for me, and I can't put as much pressure into the paper as I used to. So now I've embraced painting as my main medium. And so I think it's really interesting that it's something that I was terrified at first when I was able bodied, And now with this disability, I am much more uh, drawn to painting than I am than any other medium.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And
Yeah.
too, like, your teacher just being there to support you throughout this entire process was probably the most helpful.
Yeah, he definitely was. And I also had a very good friend who was a painting major at the same time that I went back to Baylor. And she was my kind of assistant, helping me with just trying to figure out what would be the best way that I could paint from my wheelchair. She helped me with my setup that I still use to this day. And that was about 10 years ago, I think. Yes, it was a while ago. So I'm grateful definitely for her assistance in helping me get comfortable with painting, and
Mm,
she really allowed me to see the freedom in painting that I did not see before. I really thought it was a constricted medium, and it's definitely not. So yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that your pieces were since your accident, were they always focused on, your self-expression in releasing what you were going through?
Well, at first they were. I wanted a way to paint something um, that was recognizable for everyone to experience, but not directly painting a girl in a wheelchair because that experience is really only lived by even it's a couple million people, but it's still not the majority of people know what it's like to be in a wheelchair. So one of my first paintings was a painting of a figure with a TV for a head, and in his neck was frayed wires. So everybody knows what it means to have a television that's on the fritz and connections that aren't really um, secure. So that's how my spinal cord injury was. You know, the white noise kind of represented the nerve pain that I was going through. The disconnect between my brain and my body showed like, hey, this is why these certain signals are not making themselves known throughout my body. So I use that imagery throughout some of my other pieces to kind of explain my experience. But then uh, I started to paint things that just I was drawn to, images or shapes that I was drawn to. And lately, I've been really focusing on putting my Yoruba culture into my artwork and trying to use different iconographs that represent language or ancient languages that aren't used anymore and putting that into it. But more or less, this is what I'm experiencing in my identity, um,
Mm.
beyond what it means to have a disability, what it means to be um, a child of immigrants, what it means to be, Black in America. I try to um, not picture myself into just specifically those things, but try to bring everything at once.
Yeah, and I love that, like you were saying with your art teacher as well, and you show in your Instagram, the work in progress is my favorite part about what you show. Because at first, you look at something and it has the outlines, but like the detail isn't there. So you're like, what is this?
Yeah,
Like what's
yeah.
going on here? And then when you see the final product, it's so like transformational. I love watching that. I love that you show that.
Yeah, and even for me, as I'm creating it in that way, it's sometimes a surprise because I don't always have a set idea of what this piece should look like. I think that it's a little bit egotistical for me to think that, okay, even though I'm an artist, I have so much control over making this piece impactful or beautiful. Sometimes I'm just listening to what the energies are. I'm listening to what the paint is trying to do, what the image is trying to become, and I just allow it to happen and not try to put my idea of what perfection is on top of it because then that sullies the whole message. I feel like sometimes,
Mm.
and so it's interesting sometimes when the piece is done. I roll back and I look. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like I did that. That's interesting. It's I try to take myself and my ego out of the artwork so that I have a certain meaning in mind. If someone asks me, what does this piece mean? I ask them, well, what does it mean to you? Like, what do you see in it? Because I want to make sure that my art is relatable because I feel like I'm living a life that sometimes is so unrelatable. You know what I mean? Having
Mm.
a disability sometimes makes you feel like you're an other, like you're an outside or experiencing the world in a way that it's so full of challenges that you're not thought of. So a
Mhm.
lot of times in my artwork, I try to be as relatable as possible to make sure that I'm connecting with everyone, that I'm tapping into a common human experience.
Hmm.
but all the while also being able to show something unique and specific to my experiences.
Right, and that expression that's a little healing for some
Yeah,
people and creativity.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel that it was a challenge for you to take that pivot and realize that you weren't going to be a doctor anymore? Like, how did that feel for you in that time?
Yeah, it was a very hard pivot for me. It was difficult and challenging because I was so at first so bent on being a doctor and having, you know, a couple of kids and having a husband, like having this life that I was um, ingrained on focusing on, and having a disability, especially as high up on my spinal cord as I had, was not in the cards. It definitely um, changed a lot of what I thought would be possible immediately, and it was devastating. You know, there was so much autonomy and independence that was flipped, that I thought at that moment I'll never be able to to be anything like I used to be. I remember even in the hospital, I was trying to make my own sandwich and I struggled with the mayonnaise packet and I ended up crying, despairingly, because I thought, if I can't even open up this mayonnaise packet, how am I going to be strong at all in anything? This is a mayonnaise packet and it's defeated me, you know? But
Right.
it was empowering to meet other people who had been in my situation, who are wheelchair users, who have my level of disability. It was definitely empowering to have my friends and family believe in me, to pray over me, to be with me when I was falling apart and not um, feel sorry for me, but
Mm,
give me the kind of love and support that made me feel like, okay, this inspires me to do more. This inspires me to push myself. This inspires me to see what can I be with this disability instead of what can I be to confront it or to disregard it. You know,
yeah. And having your friends and family accept you as you were previous and in the present is so helpful
yeah,
because they
yeah.
don't treat you differently.
Exactly. And you know, my parents and my siblings, I'm the oldest of five. So I went from being the one that was taking care of all of the kids to now my youngest brother and sister, you know, helping me pick up things or helping me eat, you know, at first. And it was very humbling and not feeling sorry for me, but allowing me sometimes to have moments where I was upset because
Mm,
you don't want to go on the other side and ignore all points of sadness, because then that's not being realistic, because it was a major life change. It was devastating. And I look back now 14 years later that I'm glad that I allowed myself to cry,
mm,
because it was important to mourn that and then be able to accept it and look at the opportunities that I have in front of me and be overjoyed and happy and blessed that I can move on and find an inner strength, you know. And you know, it's funny. The anniversary of my accident is in a couple days,
oh,
um,
wow.
and so every year I try to do something that is different or kind of marks the day as, yeah, this is the day that I got a second chance at life. So let me do something with the time that I have, um, and you know, being able to share my story in this way, I'll definitely add that to, this is one of the experience that I used this year on my 14-year anniversary. One year I went skydiving and that was
Wow.
exhilarating. Another year I moved to Austin, and you know, that began a journey of some hard lessons but some very amazing moments as well. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, I love that you do that. And I
Yeah,
love that you call it your second chance at life because it
yeah.
is. And that I love that mindset. I think that that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's an important thing to have because it allows me to understand that, yes, I acknowledge that this was a big life change, but I'm going to find a way to still have moments of pure joy, and I can, you know. So
Yes.
it's definitely, it's a good thing.
And have you seen a shift of acceptance at all, seeing that with social media, it's been more widely shared about people
Oh,
with
yeah.
disabilities and chronic illnesses. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I have seen it, and I'm so glad to be a part of the community that's pushing people forward and the idea of reimagining what it means to have a disability. I mean, I there was a show that I watched on Sundance called Push Girls, and that was monumental. To see like, oh, women in wheelchairs that are living life, that are having friendships, that are following their dreams, that are acknowledging their life changes, and so I know seeing that was a huge impact, I feel, on the community to see that women can have the same kind of issues as women without disability.
Mm,
Like we still have issues with appearances. We still have issues with identity and struggles with maintaining adult friendships.
mm,
So it was just really cool to see that, and then to see how many people are going into politics that have
mm,
disability, people that are still, um, and I'm still friends with a lot of the women that are very much involved in the Miss Wheelchair America Foundation, the organization, to see how many times they make their own appearances and they're recruiting other women and being a part of other organizations focused on empowering people with disabilities. I feel like these organizations are doing so well to bring our issues to the forefront.
yes, absolutely. Especially with people in Congress, like you're saying, like that is
Yeah,
such a huge part of it.
so it's
Fantastic.
exciting, and I know
Yeah.
things in the government will move slowly, but I'm at least they're moving.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And at least there's a more people talking about it in
yeah.
this way too together.
hmm
Great. That's awesome. What sort of advice would you give someone that maybe is just starting to go through living in a wheelchair or having a spinal cord injury or something like that?
I would say, I mean, there's so much to tell a person, right? That has
Yeah.
that kind of life change. But I would say that they should remain resilient in what they want in their life and not think that everything they want has been completely taken away from them. That plug into organizations that are focused on empowering people with disabilities and know that you can modify anything. It'll take it'll be challenging, but sometimes modifying the things around you so that you can be more independent, so that you can have your gifts and talents still be something that you identify with is really important. Knowing
Mm,
that yes, your body has changed, yes, your living circumstances have changed, but what about you? Can you still bring through this experience? What about you?
mm.
Will you focus on?
Yeah. And highlight in that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Would you say that you are still positive going through in your daily life after everything that you've gone through in the past 14 years?
I think consistently I am more positive, like I said, because I'm more grounded in who I am. Um, and I'm not so easily swayed by by the challenges. Like I still get frustrated when I see a curb instead of a ramp.
Mhm.
When I see somebody parking on the grid, that really bothers me. But instead of letting it run my day, I do what I need to do. I call the cops or I wait for that person to come out so that I can have a conversation with them about their inconsiderate actions. And
Whoa.
oh yeah, I love having conversations with people when it comes to them not seeing me,
Mhm.
making me feel invisible when I have just the right to exist as anyone else here. And yes, I do have a physical challenge, but that doesn't make me any less important than another person. Especially when they park on the grid, it's like the grid is actually for me. It's for people with physical and or whatever disabilities. Um, at least respect that. And so
Right.
I am more in I am more comfortable with expecting and demanding that respect.
Yes.
To be. Yeah. So I mean, I still have the hangups with, oh, I can't reach this. It's frustrating. Okay. But Whereas at the beginning of, this journey, I let it control my day. I let it make me feel like, well, that's a roadblock and that's what I'm defined by. Now it's like, oh, that's a minor annoyance. Let me just try this. And I'm I'm more flexible around a challenge than allowing it to overwhelm me. And
Mm.
I feel like I have to do that, especially as a therapist. I have to walk the walk, right? I have
Right.
to, I want to be as aligned with what I tell other people as possible. Um, and that in itself has also been kind of humbling to know that I have to sit and hold space for people who have very different challenges and still understand that I'm impacting their lives, I'm helping them, and I can help myself too. I can take my own advice,
Yeah, right.
yeah. So even though the challenges will always be there, I feel like I am more resilient to them and less overwhelmed by the little
Mm.
things. Because life will happen. Things will go awry, but that doesn't mean that I have to completely come undone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Things definitely always do come up, and you think for, like, a moment, you're like, I've been through enough." Maybe
Yeah.
it'll just be
Oh,
smooth
for
sailing."
sure. Sometimes I'm just like, life, look, I know that I'm in a wheelchair. You don't have to consistently remind me. Because sometimes, I'll have everything going well and then a caretaker won't show up.
Mm.
Or something, my chair battery is a little bit lower than I expected it to be. Or the venue that I'm supposed to show my artwork in or something is now not wheelchair accessible
Oh,
and there's
no.
stairs everywhere. It's just it's gonna happen. And it is frustrating because I think, okay, my disability is enough of a challenge, but why keep reminding me that I have these uh, stumbling blocks? But I don't focus on the why too much. I give
Mm.
myself that moment to ask the why, then I'm like, all right, asking why is not going to happen.
And then your resilience comes, like you're saying.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
you have
great.
to just keep pushing through because I mean, you know that life is always going to continue throwing things at you. But if you
Mm.
focus on why you are the one to be experiencing that experience, then it's just going to be a cycle, a
Yeah.
very uh, unproductive cycle.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been at the "Why me?" But like you're
Yeah.
saying, it didn't even feel good to ask it almost,
Mhm.
I asked it and then I was like, I know, like, I don't care about the answer. It's just like I gotta get through it.
Yeah, because is the answer really going to change that circumstance at that moment? It may
Right.
give you some peace to be like, okay, I know the bigger picture. I know what's going to happen. But then, is it really going to change the fact that you can't, do that one thing that you want to do right then and there? You know?
Mm. Mhm. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
do you have any sort of foundations or anything that you wanna bring to light for other people?
So, I did think about this a little bit, and I just realized there's a lot of organizations that kind of helped me get to where I am. Um, Definitely getting into a physical therapy program that focuses on your strengths and your goals in life, physically and mentally. So Project Walk was a really good um, stepping stone for me to get to where I am. The Miss Wheelchair America Foundation was definitely something that I can accredit my sense of groundedness. Um, and then, yeah, social media has been a big thing for me too. So I don't want to just plug Instagram, but being able to have that access to people who are living their lives and informing other people about how they live their lives is it's been really great. But beyond that, um, I really don't have much to plug.
No,
Oh, and
that's
also
great.
mental health. Everyone should definitely be finding a way to have an outlet towards improving their mental health. So, Psychology Today is a great resource for finding a therapist, finding information about stress reduction and combating anxiety. So,
Mm.
I wish I had more of a concrete organizations to plug, but
No, those are great. Those are all
those
really
are
good.
gonna come to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any future goals that you're looking to do with either your art or your therapy?
So for my art, I'd love to show in a museum
Mm.
or a really prestigious art gallery. I want to also get into sculpting again, but I know that because of my disability, I can't do metal sculpture, but I want to recreate some of my paintings in a 3D format so that it's more of an experience and not just something on the wall that you look at. So that's
Mm.
something like, I don't know, probably far off end goal, something that I want to create and kind of consider it my masterpiece before, I leave this world. but
Oh, cool.
I definitely want to stretch myself as an artist, get into um, wider spaces to have my art viewed on a bigger platform. And therapy wise, I'm learning so much with my different clients. I'd like to even maybe come up with a theory of my own. We have uh, positive psychology, we have person centered, theories and all of that. But I'm noticing with some of my clients that maybe there's something that I'm picking up on that hasn't yet been um, discovered. So I would want to come up with my own theory,
Cool.
as well, a theory of mental health. But
Mm.
that's I wouldn't say that that's a concrete goal of mine, but it's something that I've been kind of experimenting with, I guess, or thinking about.
Yeah, like messing around
Yeah,
with
just
tinkering.
what connections am I seeing with my clients, and how can I make this into something that no one has ever really heard of, but everyone has experienced it. It's almost like
Mm.
you go through life with a certain ailment and you don't know what the diagnosis is, but once you find that label, it's like, oh, now it's all clicked into place.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I, one of my the people that I kind of follow was uh, Ayanna Van Zant. She's a very supportive therapist, and her style is so much more like a mother and
Mm.
a very wise person. So I hope to be someone like that as a therapist, someone that can be very loving and supportive. Is so inspiring. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so
Oh, fantastic. Are you open for commissions and are you accepting new clients?
I am open for commissions, although if I were to get, I'm working on commission now, but I work very slowly, especially while I'm seeing clients for therapy. So I would hope that my next couple of clients will be very patient, and especially since it's going to be an oil painting that
Right.
already takes a long time anyway to create. Um, and as far as clients, I don't have any more openings for clients right now. COVID has really gotten a lot of people to be more aware about their mental health. So I've had a flood of clients. So right now my caseload is full, um, which I feel it's a good thing that people are really taking their mental health seriously and knowing that you don't have to have a crisis to need a space to just feel free to talk. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, that's really important to bring up that, just talking through your thoughts to someone who is an unbiased opinion can be so helpful sometimes.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's very liberating to have that space where you're not being judged and you're not, like you said, having to speak to someone who's very biased. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And involved in your life afterwards, like your mom,
Mhm.
like,
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Mom."
Exactly. Because even though these people love you and they care for you, they have a certain idea of who you are. And that might not align with who you are trying to be or who you are at that moment. So it's
Mhm.
important to just have a space where you can be completely yourself and just not feel like you have to have everything solved at once or you have to live up to the person's idea of who you are. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Oh, I
mhm.
so appreciate you jumping on, and like I said, I can't wait to look forward to seeing more of your work.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so
Awesome.
much. I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
allowing me to share my story. It's a great opportunity, and yeah, I hope that you continue to do this for other people because your platform is so amazing and great. You know.
Thank you. So amazing. I really loved hearing that. Just this warm. I love that she talked about this creator who is very warm and motherly when I'm over here like, this is so calming. This conversation, you are warming my heart with every word that you say. Like, she's so warm and friendly and just amazing. I can't even begin to thank you enough for jumping on the call, Kemi, and talking to us about living with paralysis, how you're a therapist on top of that, and like inspiring people to, you know, push through their pain and talk to others about what they're going through. Hit her up for some commissions. She is open for commissions. Just don't expect Amazon delivery, which I don't know how you would if you're getting a painting commission. It's like it's going to take more than 2 days for that to happen. Anyway, thank you again for being you. If you like this podcast, like and subscribe. Make sure to listen in to next 2 weeks. I'm doing every 2 weeks because life sort of was like, whoa, you need to live me. I was like, okay, cool, I will. So every 2 weeks, new episode of Still Positive. Be sure to check it out. Hit me up on the email or the Instagram at Still Positive Podcast or at 5_ Dayna Marie. That's obnoxious, so it's in the show notes. Thank you and have a great day. Keep staying safe.